Hey everybody, I'm getting started with my live just a minute early here, just so everything can buffer. So give me just a second and we'll get on started. Good to see some of you joining so far. If you've got any student loan questions that you want to ask, please put them in the comments. I'd absolutely love to tackle those in the next 10 minutes. Alrighty, it looks like it's officially 8 o'clock. That means it's time to get started with my live. If you haven't met me before, my name is Grace Pomeroy, and I'm a financial educator, speaker, and coach, and I'm super passionate about helping you make money your friend in life, work, and love. Whether you're a recent grad or not, I think student loans is a huge topic that needs to be tackled more often. I often talk with different audiences about how this is really a justice issue. If some of you may have seen my Instagram post this week about all the stats around student loans, I mean, there's such a heavy student loan burden that people of all ages are carrying in our nation today. So it's important that we talk about how to repay those loans in a sustainable way. Alrighty, so let's jump into the 5 things that I wish that I would have known about student loans. And again, if you've got questions or you got things you want me to tackle today, please put them in the comments. I'd absolutely love to talk more. And if I don't know the answer, I'll do some research and get back to you. So before we jump into my 5 things, I wanted to share with you guys that I'm kind of an unintentional student loan expert, if I could say that. I did not intend to become an expert in student loans. I graduated with probably about the average level of student loan debt, about $30,000, which is pretty sustainable for me on the budget that I had after I finished graduate school and started my first full-time job. I've not repaid all of my debt yet. I've been on the standard repayment plan, slowly paying a little bit more each month and hope to get out at least 2 years early, so 8 years of repayment on those loans. Now, when I married my husband, he had about twice the amount of student loan debt that I did, even maybe a little bit more than that. I suppose private for-profit schools don't tend to give you very good aid for your loans, and especially not the school that he went to. So he was really in a tough spot. So for him, we tested out just about every income-based repayment program. We consolidated his loans, and he has both private and federal. So I've learned a lot about loans along the way. So here are a couple things I really wish someone would have told me right after I graduated so that I could have had a smoother path to repayment. First, income-based repayment. Don't be shy about checking into this option. I know it's easy to think, oh, I must be making nothing or just working a small part-time job to qualify for income-based repayment. But in fact, they've made it easier and easier to qualify and easier to lower those payment amounts. So if you're looking at that amount for standard repayment plan and you're getting a little scared about how you're going to repay that back, check into all the options that are available. Studentloans.gov has an amazing repayment estimator that I've used on many occasions, and especially if your student has just graduated or if you're a student who's just graduated and you want to really take a look at the loans, the earlier you can use it, the better, just to take a look at all the repayment programs you qualify for and begin to weigh your different options. The one caveat I would give, and the reason why I stayed on standard repayment, even though I could have qualified for some income-based repayment programs, is that most of the time, if you go with an income-based repayment program, you might have to pay a little bit longer than that standard repayment program. And you may not want that. You may not want to have to pay more interest. So there really are pros and cons, but I would say if you're in a situation where you're not really sure how you're going to be able to handle it, please let the government help you out here by lowering some of those payments. I see we already have a question about that. Best student loan options for parents to look at for their child needing to close that gap. Now, that's a really interesting question. I'm so glad you brought that up, Sherry. It's a really good one. As far as parent loans go, there's a variety of different ones out there. I know Parent Plus is one that a lot of parents use. The one thing that I would say for sure, though, is defining with your child beforehand what you're going to be responsible for versus what your child's going to be responsible for. So for instance, if you plan to get a Parent Plus loan at the beginning of their schooling career, but you really hope that at the end of the day, they're going to pay that back, even though that loan is in your name, make sure that's as clear as crystal. Now, as far as the other Parent Plus or other types of parent loans, I have to say I'm not quite sure all the ones that are out there, but I'd be happy to take a look into that and DM you with a little bit more information. So hold tight. I'll send you a little bit more later this week. So then another thing really think much about are forgiveness programs. There are a variety of different forgiveness programs out there. One that I'm a big fan of is public service loan forgiveness. This is out there for folks who are working in nonprofit or governmental settings. It is a great option that is available. This actually can apply, by the way, too, to parents as well as graduates who are working in those settings. There's a lot of standards that go around it as far as whether or not you've worked in that industry for at least 10 years with 10 qualifying payments on a qualifying repayment plan. So you definitely want to check into the details of the program. But good news is they actually have a really awesome way to see if you're qualified now for that program in public service loan forgiveness. They have a tool that you can use to see if you've qualified and to see how many qualifying payments you've made and to see what changes you need to make sure you qualify for the program in the future. Some other forgiveness programs that are out there are some for teachers, nurses, doctors, lawyers, military, and I believe there are some others as well. The only thing I would caution here is there's a lot of income-based repayment programs that say they're going to forgive after a certain period of time, after 15 years, 25 years, depending on the program you've chosen. One thing to keep in mind when you are getting forgiveness through an income-based repayment program is that generally that forgiveness is taxable. The only program I know for sure that does not tax the forgiveness is public service loan forgiveness. So even if you're going to be getting loan forgiveness, consider the fact that any amount that's forgiven is taxable. Now, that isn't to say that you shouldn't take advantage of that program. Certainly, it's a great deal, right? But you're going to want to plan ahead for the tax burden you might face. Some other things to think about are consolidation. I know a lot of people who came out of school and they wanted to lower their interest rate, so they immediately consolidated their federal loans into private loans. Now, consolidation is a tricky thing. There's a lot of things to consider when it goes into consolidation, and interest rate is just one of many factors. But one thing I would let you know about that I did not know about for quite a while is that if you consolidate your federal loans into private loans, you're losing out on a lot of the programs we've just talked about. So loan forgiveness, you're losing out on any types of programs for deferment or forbearance. You might be losing out because private student loan companies have their own regulations. They may have repayment programs available, they may not. If you end up losing your job, they may have income-based programs, but likely not. I know, for instance, with my husband's private student loan, there's really not a lot of choices. If we were to lose a job, he'd still have to pay on that loan every month. Whereas with his federal loans, we've got a lot of flexibility. And for most of us, especially those of us in a service type industry, it's nice to know that there's something to fall back on. The other thing that I think is really cool about consolidation, now this consolidation I'm going to talk about is federal to federal, because something you can actually do is consolidate all of your federal loans into one federal loan. It's not going to reduce your interest rate. They actually take a weighted average of your interest rates, but something it can do is allow you to change your loan servicer. Something we realized pretty early on with my husband was that his loan servicer, I won't mention them by name, was not one that we trusted. Every time we gave them a call to hear about different programs or to learn about their different available options to save money and interest, we got a different answer every time. And we never got to talk to the same person. And I've always worked with Great Lakes. That is the servicer that I have for my loans, and I love them. I trust them. Their website is very transparent. There's a variety of repayment options that I've been able to see. I actually found them to be a helpful partner in this repayment process. And I didn't want to be with my husband's servicer anymore. I just didn't trust them, didn't appreciate the way that they were treating us. So when we consolidated, you're actually allowed to choose from any of the federal loan servicers. I believe it's a list of 5 or 6, and Great Lakes was on the list. So we were able to move my husband's loans to Great Lakes. He now has one payment instead of a lot of different payments on his loans, and it's transparent, which is something we appreciate. By the way, this is in no way supported by Great Lakes. I'm just a really big fan of them after having worked with them now for almost 8 years. Number 4, there are other things to think about besides student loans. I think so often when people graduate from college, the first thing they want to do is get their student loan burden off their back. And believe me, I get it. I think all of us who've graduated from college somewhat recently have had that surprise moment where you realize that you haven't been living for free for the past 4 years and that all of a sudden you've got a huge bill to pay. Not in any way trying to be condescending, but that's certainly the way that it felt to me. And when I saw that big bill, it was easy to say, how do I get this off my plate? It's holding me back from all of my goals, buying a house, being able to get a bigger, more reasonable apartment that isn't falling apart, being able to save for retirement or an emergency. But the truth of the matter is, especially if you've got public student loans, federal student loans, your interest rate is pretty low. So if you're able to get some of these other goals taken care of first, like for instance, creating a realistic budget, knowing that your bills are paid on time and you can handle all those day-to-day expenses. Number two, having some emergency cash stashed away, $500 to $1,000, depending on your situation, that you can draw on in the case of an emergency. It's going to be so helpful so that you don't have to go backwards on your debt repayment plan. Getting some of that high interest debt out of the way. I know a lot of people who graduate from college with credit card debt as well as student loan debt, and that can be so burdensome. If you are in that situation, paying off that credit card debt first is a really great thing to do because likely it's got a lot higher of an interest rate. High interest debt is an interest rate of 10% or more, and most credit cards I've been seeing these days are around 15 to 18 to even 20% interest rate. So you want to make sure that gets paid before your piddly 6%-ish student loan rate. And of course, something that you should be doing early on too is saving for retirement. All of those things matter, and getting started on those bigger goals while you're still pursuing that goal of repaying student loan debt. I know it seems complicated, but it's a really important thing to get on your plate right away. Make sure that you have that realistic budget set, that you've got a little stash of emergency cash, that you have paid off that high interest debt, that should be a first priority, and that you're starting to save for retirement. Believe me, if you can do those things, you're going to get off to such a great start. Last thing that I wish that I would have known, and I really want to make this clear to you guys, is that there's a lot of resources to help when it comes to student loan debt. I will never forget my husband and I attending a wedding. It was shortly before we got married, and it was a wedding of some friends of his, and we were waiting between the wedding and the rehearsal or the reception afterwards and chatting with some of his friends from art school. And one of them said to him, oh, well, I owe so much in student loan debt. I'm just not going to pay my student loans. I'm just going to ignore their calls and keep changing my address. And here's the deal. They're going to track you down. So instead of hiding from your debt, you need to face your debt head on. And there's a lot of great resources to help you so you don't have to go through this alone. A couple that I would mention to you are studentloans.gov. That's the government website. And they've got a lot of calculators and repayment tools there to make it easy for you to see what you have to pay back and what length of time you're going to be looking into, and help pick a plan that really works for your life and for your budget. Another amazing resource, and you don't have to be Lutheran to use it, is Lutheran Social Service, also known as LSS, Financial Counseling. LSS Financial Counseling is a phenomenal resource. We use it all the time at my work, and I've been so impressed with them. They offer student loan counseling for free. You heard me right there, for free. They offer this. So if you've got questions about student loan debt, you want to talk to somebody who's got a ball in your court, they are not in any way trying to sell you something, give them a call. They are accredited to talk about student loans, and they know way more than I do. So I know you'll enjoy that conversation. Another thing to consider, and again, this really depends on your situation, is your loan servicer. As I mentioned, Great Lakes has been an amazing resource for me. I've learned so much from them. They have a website that's really designed to help you find the best repayment strategy and learn ways that you can cut back on your student loan debt and create a lifestyle that's debt-free. I've been so excited to see the different articles they've come out with that are really aimed at helping people. But again, the loan servicer, it really depends. The one that my husband used to have, I didn't really trust. They weren't giving us correct information. So it really is a pro and a con there. But I would say if you've got a good loan servicer, lean on them. All right, so those are the things I wish I knew about student loan debt. If you want to share what you wish you knew about student loan debt or any questions that you have, even if I can't answer them, I'd love to hear them, and I'd love to find some answers for you. I know I already got that one from Sherry, which is a great one, which is how to help parents pay their child's way through education. I'd absolutely love to hear more. The last thing I want to share with you, especially for those of you who've got grads in your life, or maybe you, like these grads, kind of want to have a fresh start on a big goal that you have in your life. If that's the case, I am offering my big goal strategy session 50% off for the next couple of days. Use the offer code GRAD, G-R-A-D. 50% off my 1-hour session where we take that big goal of yours, whether it's a vacation, repaying student loan debt, or just trying to make the best use of your first paycheck. We'll break down that goal into manageable bite-sized pieces, discuss barriers that might get in the way, and create a plan for you. Oh, Michael, so much. Thank you for throwing that in there. It's great. I love it. Michael and I did a session together. He actually won one of my giveaways earlier this year, which is really fun. But if you want to really break down that goal, and instead of just talking about your goal, really make a plan. Join in 50% with the offer code GRAD. You don't even have to be a grad, a recent grad, in order to be able to take advantage of it. Again, any questions you got on student loans, throw them on in there. I'll be checking over the weekend to see any comments that come in. Thank you so much for joining me today. We'll definitely be talking about student loans again soon. It's great to see all of you on the line. Have a great night.